Welcome, everybody, to the Life and Sound podcast. I got a special guest today, Napes from Queens, New York. How you doing today, man?
Doing good, man. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me on here.
Nah, I'm excited, bro. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah. Just had a few transactions in terms of like conversations, and it's great to finally just sit down and kind of kick it.
Definitely, bro. All right, well, I'll just jump right into it. How would you say your relationship with music has changed from when you were a kid until now?
That's probably a really, I guess, deep question. I mean, my relationship, I guess, started off just because I took piano lessons from my cousin growing up. So I think in some sense there was like a genuine. It started off as a genuine interest there. It's just straight from family. I think at the root of getting those lessons was just trying to spend more time with family, oddly enough, because my cousins, they were all in Yonkers. So I think in an effort to not only like support like my cousin that was teaching me, and also like spend more time together, we make our trip out there. And then my dad was like, hey, your cousin Tom could just teach you piano lessons while we're out there. And then I think that's kind of where like the music like relationship started. My ear started to develop. All my cousins just loved. We were all music fans, so that's kind of where it was. That's kind of where it started, and then from there, fast forward. I think I was 14 or maybe 15, and I was on a trip in Thailand, which is where my family's from. I'm Thai. So there wasn't really much to do. Like it's amazing country, obviously. But when I was in with my family, just to help pass time, my aunt was like, your dad used to play the guitar, and let's, if you're interested in doing that, let's see how, if you just have fun with it while you're here. I was like, yeah, sure. Like I always loved to play guitar, and seeing my dad play, I was like, all right, let's do it. And then I kind of learned a few lessons there. Nothing like too traditional. I just learned a few chords here and there, and I guess from there, I feel like Thailand really has like their great ear in like live performances with like bands and stuff like that. So like alternative rock and just rock was like really huge there. So the idea of playing in a band was like always of interest to me, and gigging out with like your friends, and it was just an awesome thing to see and be a part of, which I'm sure you felt before. But that's kind of where I kind of branched off into another instrument. And then fast forward to like another phase. I'm sorry, I'm like
You're good,
trying
bro.
to reach back, but yeah, going to the different, I guess, major like pivots or like milestones of a musical like career, to answer the question. After learning guitar a few maybe months or years later, I made a connection with a friend who is an artist, very talented artist, still releasing new projects to this day. His name's Ryan Mitchell Gray, very talented guy, best songwriter I know. And I think at the time he was in Elmhurst and I was in Jackson Heights, Queens. So we were pretty close to each other. We weren't doing anything most of our days. So it's like, hey, you just want to like jam out, and gig. And then we just started to hang out, just play music, talk about music. And he had this pretty like core following. And at the time, my relationship with music was like, I just like to play, but he had this mind where like, anything's possible. He was more of a go-getter, where it was like, I'll reach out for relationships. I'm interested in people that are artists that are like actually, working and creating these relationships. And he kind of like opened that door to like, for me to like look into that, and like, oh wow, you could listen to somebody on MySpace. You could probably reach out to them at the time. This was around maybe 2000, I want to say 2010 2010 maybe
Oh
2009
yeah,
2010. Yeah, so like MySpace, like, all those like the YouTube scene, like artists were just like, it
it
was
was
just a new
burgeoning. It was
thing.
perfect
Yeah,
time.
yeah, exactly. So I was learning about that, and then through him, while we were jamming. And to backtrack, when I was learning guitar back in Thailand when I was 15, I always had an interest of like wanting to learn bass. I thought it was like the coolest thing, as well. And and around this time, in like around 2009, Ryan was like, "Hey, I need a bassist." So my memory from back then is like, all right, this is an
The
opportunity. I always
opportunity.
want, yeah. So I was like, oh, I love playing bass. Like, this is, I'll pick up a bass. And I think he had an extra bass lying around. I was like, just use this one. I was like, okay. And it was just fun. It was a conversation with me and my friend. Like, now we're forming a band.
Yep.
And it just kind of became this thing. We met a few other members, like with another guitarist and a drummer, and that evolved. And then we became this band called Mitchell Gray. And that was a major experience, an eye-opening experience, that I'm very grateful for, because through the band and the following, we were able to kind of tour and just kind of go, perform shows in, Toronto, record a full, an album with a producer named Jesse Barrera, who's very big on the scene. He's been going crazy this year. And that the whole recording process was just amazing, and just like, it's one of those memories you look back to all the time. You recall the feeling that kind of puts the battery in your back, to
Yep.
just kind of like, keep your spirits up when you're like creating music and learn. So that was a major experience. Then from there, to tie it back to the original question of what my experience with like my relationship with music has been. I guess it's just always been there, as things happen, life goes on. We take a sabbatical as a band, just because we were just still trying to discover things in life.
Of course.
And I had just graduated college at Baruch. And I think I wanted to just kind of, I was in this moment where it's like, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with music. Where's my relationship with music gonna go? And I kind of just wanted to explore things and just take a, like, I guess a sabbatical from it, and then just be a consumer of music. And that's all it did until, years later, let's just say from 2020, honestly, being a fan of it so much and being involved with it so heavily, then it just kind of pulled me back into with the pandemic and everything. It created this isolation, allowed me for some time to like think to myself, look at what I had around me, and just like just dive back into the DAW again. And that's kind of where I'm at now. And it's just been a crazy ride since, just rediscovering that passion, creating a music library now. There's so many different avenues that wasn't there back in 2009,
Agreed.
2010. And, my knowledge from taking a break from music and jumping, when I was taking a break, I was introduced to the world of e-commerce. So when you're in e-commerce, it's just like building online store. The e-commerce is like, whether it's operations or like marketing, combining that knowledge, and then how do I combine that with like my passion with music?
Yes.
And I guess that's like where I stand now with my relationship with music and how it's evolved since. It's just an overall ever-changing thing of learning, growing, applying to music, learning, growing, applying to music. So that's kind of where I'm at. And sorry if it was a long-winded question,
It's
but I wanted to provide a bit of context of how long it took, living life, not knowing
Yep.
what's gonna happen, and then where you're at now.
What I love about
Yeah.
the whole journey that I'm getting from this is, even from when you were young, it sounded like music was always something that was fun and brought you joy.
Yeah.
And the universe kind of gave you different opportunities where it put the friend around you who was looking at it in a more business point. You were looking
Right.
at like, I like playing music. I'm hanging out with my friend. Like we're
Yeah.
vibing. I like listening
Yeah.
to music.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then from all that, it was like, the ebbs and flows of life take place. You're having fun. And then when it stopped becoming fun, that's almost when you needed to step back and recharge.
Right, right, exactly. Like I, you know, I went to college and I majored in music management. And to be like honest, like it wasn't until I was just about to graduate and I realized like this happened with nursing too. Like I was a nursing major. I realized I couldn't work in a hospital. I was like, all right, this isn't for me. I went music management. I was like, all right, like, but I kind of don't want to ruin my love of music by working in the industry. Like it was a weird thing where like, and I'm a slow learner and I'm not proud of it, but like I just accepted it and just embrace of like, this is how I am and I'll just learn how to improve from there. But that's I just knew at the root of it, like I didn't want to work in the music industry. I wanted to just be an artist and create music. That's what I loved about it.
Yeah, following your
but-
joy again. Like
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
the way I've
Yeah.
been living my life especially the past 2 years since the pandemic happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like I probably should have gone back to work a few months ago,
Right.
and I just haven't. And the reason I haven't is because I was able to save up enough money over the pandemic to be like, okay, if I do want to take a step back and like figure out what I want to do, I could do it comfortably.
Right.
So
right.
I think you are doing all the right things. It doesn't matter the places you go and then stop, because I look at it's just like stepping stones on your journey to where you want to go.
Yeah, man. It's not like the accolades. And I feel like I just learned, like, I'm understanding this since last week, at least for now where I am. It's like, it's not the accolades. Of course, the accolades, all the awards, they're great and amazing. But at the end of the day, like, success is different to different people. It's different to different people. So, like, it's ever changing. And, like, my success is, like, at least I'm still doing music. Like, I feel
Yep.
fulfilled, Like, I think it's the joy and feeling fulfilled of, like, being able to create, being blessed to have internet and do all of these things, because it's insane with, the fact that we could communicate now the way we are,
Yeah.
through technology. It's just a blessing. So, but yeah, it's not the accolades. It's more of how far you can go, not where I'll go. How long can I do this for?
And enjoying the journey.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
like the whole thing. I look at it like, just because you're getting placements and you're getting accolades, doesn't necessarily mean you're happy.
Right, right.
And
I
I
can
feel
imagine,
like,
yeah.
I feel like happiness and the joy of creating is when you're going to make your best stuff. And then when things stop being fun is when things start getting difficult.
Right. Yeah. And I apply that a lot, and it took me a long time to even come back to that, like go back to that 14-year-old self or 16, whatever, when I tapped in with my boy Ryan. It's like we jumped in with the joy of it first, and that's what was like the fuel. That's what was, put the battery in our backs to just like enjoy it, have fun, and then and that's where you want to be, and focusing on that, because then, as music fans, you listen to like jazz and all that stuff, which is like amazing stuff, neo soul. Like then you start to think, do I know enough theory? Like,
Yep.
I gotta jump into all this theory stuff, and then that could like create a creative block in your process. And so it took me a long time to just jump in and like just play what you think is fun, just play how you feel,
Yep.
record it, just keep doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it too. There's enough repetition where like you're creating and putting out stuff, and I was too concerned about, is the mixing right? Do I have the right equipment?
Things that are all important.
Yeah, exactly. They're very important. I don't want to downplay all that, and that's what makes, the hits and the legendary tracks what they are. But in terms of, I just don't want anyone to feel discouraged from creating by overwhelming themselves, because I did that for a long time.
Same.
So,
And what
yeah.
the funny part is I feel like as music makers, at first when you're making music, I remember being a teenager and playing guitar and playing instruments and thinking, oh, you just set up microphones in front of the amp, you set a microphone up in front of the vocalist, you record and you're done. Like you just have to nail the song. And then as you grow and you get deeper into the process, you realize like how much stuff there is.
Yeah.
And as you go in, you're like, oh my God, this feels like it never ends. But
Yeah.
the beauty of it is as deep as you get into the theory, into the mixing, all that stuff, you almost realize it's all secondary to what is actually being recorded. Like
Right.
my perfect example that I always use to tell people when they're like, is my mix good, or is my mixing good enough, or is this song good enough? Like, I don't know. I just always say, just listen to Look at Me by XXX Tentacion. That song is clipping the whole time. The vocals are distorted, but it's one of the best songs ever made.
Yeah, and his ear and his team was like, it was crazy. Like I remember he definitely like, I feel like made a wave that I don't hear anybody talk too much about anymore. At least maybe I just haven't talked to too many people. But yeah, like the whole boom bap scene and like how he was just creating, and I felt like he was just this channel of I just want to create and then go through different kind of like moods, which I really appreciated. Yeah.
And
yeah,
to me,
yeah.
that's where I feel like the most groundbreaking artists and the best music are really going to be like made is where you're not boxing yourself into a genre. You're not stuck doing one thing. If everybody told Drake not to sing in 2008, we wouldn't have all the R&B and rap we have now, you know?
Right.
And vice versa. It's like if you told him to only sing, you wouldn't have the great rap songs. And, you know, so I think the most important thing is people should never feel like limited, or don't ever feel like I can only do a certain sound. Like you should try. I mean, even yesterday, I mean, the last 2 days I've made I wouldn't even say it's a dance hall type song, but it's almost more like a reggaeton song.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love reggaeton. So like, yeah, it's all about what you appreciate and what you hear, and then like if you like it, just freaking try to create it. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, because you're like people downplay even if you don't play any instruments. And another thing I realized is like if you've been listening to it your whole life, like you might and you haven't touched an instrument, like of course like a producer has its advantages, but I feel like there's a feel that you have over like the other producer, if that producer's never listened to that type of music, has all the instruments in the world that you have, that's like you can't downplay that because you have you've been listening to your whole life or whatnot. Like you know what's supposed to sound like, go with your gut, and that's gonna like bring you to the finish line.
You know what moves you inside.
Exactly. Yeah. You know what sounds right, and that's all you could do. You know, at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more. When are the times where you feel yourself having the most fun in the studio?
Most fun, I guess, it's any time I kind of like I'm able to just like tap into the dog, because you know it's a lot now. Well, I just got a puppy, so there's a lot of responsibilities that go with that, and a lot of different like you just have to be flexible. And the way I see, I guess, making music, especially nowadays, is like, and I'm a nerd, so sorry for like all these like weird like nerdy references, but like
I'm
you know
a
how,
super nerd, so
yeah,
don't even worry.
But like you know, Spider-Man, Iron Man, they all have these different outfits, armor, whatever, like costumes, right? Like nowadays, I think the fun I have is like figuring out how I could set up my studio and what I'm gonna create in that environment. So like with a puppy, my studio is downstairs in the basement, but I couldn't be downstairs in the basement with the puppy in the living room. So figuring out, being flexible, or like how can I set up a place in the dining room right now to just be able to create when I can. And I feel like there's fun in being creative about what you could do, and also it adds a limitation that I've come to appreciate, where like I could only do this, but I'm gonna do what I can with what I have to create what I can at the end of the day. So it's that, I guess it's the fun in exploring and experimenting in the studio, in that sense. That's when I have the most fun, figuring things out, putting on a different suit depending on where I could, you know, create.
Yeah. So you would say you get joy in figuring out like the best ways to achieve like your highest potential with a set like limitations.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. It's like a little game you kind of like play with yourself, and obviously at the end of the day, like you know you're gonna have your days where you're like I'm not inspired, or but the fact is if you tried that day, you really tried, you got something done, like that should be something appreciated.
The
And yeah,
best way I look at that, a good quote, the best quote that I hold dear to me when I think about stuff like that is there's a quote from Rick Rubin, and he says, making music or making a song is like fishing. You can go out that day and go fishing and say, I'm going to catch 3 fish, but you can't guarantee you're going to catch 3 fish.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But going out and making the effort is the important part because
Right.
you could get nothing, you could get everything.
Yeah, yeah. And shout out to like you know, Ill Mind for really, you know, I've putting that into practice and like showing his community like how to do. He's like just his work ethic is insane. He'll go in, it's like I'm gonna make 10 beats, and he'll make like 8 beats in a day. But it's this trick that he does, where it's like you go in obviously excited, you know, empowered to make 10 beats, and you come out with something. But at the end of the day, the win is that you came out with one.
Yes.
But he comes out with 8 or 9 and sometimes 10 and even over 10 sometimes. But like those are the really good days, and everyone's human, and that's the process that you got to enjoy and love. At least that I understand from creating music every day.
I agree.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in that situation, you know, you got to look at it. The important thing is you got to celebrate the fact that you made 8 and not feel hard on yourself the fact that you didn't make 10.
Yeah, right, yeah. And then feeling appreciative that you made something at all, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a big thing. A big gem that I've learned maybe since like over the past year. It's the work ethic and the practice.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What is the music scene like where you live, or what was it like when you were growing up? Like, how did it affect you?
Well, Jackson Heights is like it's very like Hispanic based, so like all you heard was like either Colombian, Mexican, or like all these kinds of music. So they were like always interesting rhythms. The food there is just like amazing. But yeah, it was ridiculous. But in terms of like the music scene, that's like the environment that I grew up with, and I didn't necessarily go to any live shows. You know, there, but it was just always around. You always heard that kind of music, all those different kinds of languages, and the music scene for me, obviously, I think I didn't really dive into the like music scene until I was in the band doing all those like, you know, different live shows. And you know, there were different dive bars, and I think when I was in the band, we had like we consider ourselves like alternative R&B group, so we just play that kind of music. So the music scene that I grew up in was with a lot of indie artists that were
That's
just
awesome.
building that following. Yeah, in on YouTube, or you know, maybe even SoundCloud or whatnot, and they just kind of these independent creators and artists. That's kind of the music scene that I grew up with. You know, the Passion, AJ Raphael, Gabe Bundock, like those very you know, they kind of like paved the way for like at least the very popular Filipino indie artists when I was starting out. And
I love that.
Yeah. So that's pretty much how that was, and it was very empowering and a blessing to be able to connect with those kind of like minds, and hang out with them. Yeah.
There's power in collaboration, I feel like.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it all starts in like conversation, and music is at the end of the day is meant to be collaborative. I think, you know, do what you can to know as much as you can and wear different hats. Don't box yourself in, but you're like robbing yourself of the true joy of music when you're not collaborating with other
I
people.
agree. I mean, my first sample pack, my first pack that I just put out, you know, Prohibition, that came about. I had the samples basically like 90% done, or not even 90%. I'll say they were about 80% done for a few months, and I just couldn't get that like last little bit.
Yeah.
And I have my good close friend. He goes by Space Boy Uno, but his name's Sebastian. And I had Sebastian come over, and he was kind of this person who was here to just keep me in check in not let me like overanalyze. He was somebody I
Yeah.
brought in, and it was like, oh, let's like write these chords. And then I wrote the chord progression, and then I kind of like look at him, and he's like, no, it's good. Like, don't overthink it. On to the next instrument. What are you gonna do? And I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah.
okay, like pick up the bass, play the bass line. Is this
Yeah.
good? He's like, yeah, great. Go from there. So it didn't let me, because I know for me personally, I'll sometimes like write a loop, and I'll just be walking around my studio for like 30 minutes just listening. But
Yeah.
it can almost get you stuck if you're not taking action. Because then
Yeah.
you're like, is it good anymore? I feel like my ear's fatigued.
Right. You got to keep going with the motion, going with your guts, hold on to that, the joy of fun of the session. But that is interesting. That's the thing that I think most people run into is like if they're jamming with someone new, especially, it's like there's another mind you have to work with now. And then that's where you're probably more vulnerable to overthinking things. But it's great when you have somebody to tell you, like, don't overthink it. It's good. And I've had that myself with like my other, I released a few packs with him, Dan Song, where amazing producer as well. Like I was asking him, does the kick drum sound weird and all that stuff? He's like, it's good, man. It's the best one I've ever heard. Like, so like just stuff like that's the attitude you want to like go in with somebody with is like, let's just have fun and create like the best music we can.
And it has to be somebody I feel like you actually trust their word. It's not somebody who's just like, yeah, no, it works. Like, they have to have some sort of credibility with you.
Right. And if it's not credibility, you trust their ear because like they're friends that don't of mine that they don't play instruments or not, but like if they were had skills in DJing, I would trust them forever. Like I love their taste in music. They're always putting me on to new music. So like
Taste.
Yeah, exactly. Like their taste helps as well. So yeah, that's just another thing.
I love that.
Yeah.
Now, how did you first start connecting, or how did you first connect with the artists you're working with now, and even like Unknown? Like, how did the UNKWN Sounds thing come about?
Okay. Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, in 2020 was when I kind of during the pandemic is when I just picked things up again in music, and I was just at this time just chilling in my basement, and I obviously was just a fan of music like wanting to see music creation, and at the time there's nothing going on. I was on YouTube on the TV for whatever reason, like the Chromecast, and then like Illmind was there, and he was like creating beats. I was like, oh, I wonder, this seems fun to just like watch,
Yeah, why not?
And he's creating. I was like, wow, he's like creating this really fast. Because in my mind, growing up, you're like, it must take weeks to finish a beat. So, like,
Definitely, you're like, there's
like,
so much detail.
Yeah, there's so much, but like he does it in like a few like hours, and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. It's very entertaining to watch. Then he basically he has this thing called Illmind Platinum Club, and I was like, hey, why not? Like I just want to have fun while I'm in this pandemic. Let me just send a few things. Maybe he'll open it up. And then
Why not?
He opened up one of my melodies or samples, and then he was like, oh, I'll try this. I was like, oh, okay, this is really cool. And then fast forward a bit, he moved his platform from YouTube and then onto Twitch. Unknown was on the channel. He heard one of my samples, and then he on the chat he was basically like, hey, have you ever wanted to release under a library? And I didn't, I was still just coming back into like the music game. I felt like Samurai Jack, like I fast forward, I'm like, what's going on? Like, how does this work? And so I was like, yeah, of course. Like just listening to Unknown, I'm like, everything this guy does is fire.
So
like,
good.
Yeah. So hell yeah, like I'd be interested. And he's like, okay, so send me what you got. I'll consider it, whatever. And then, one thing led to the next, and then he was like, we got a pack, and it was on the Drum Broker, which I actually didn't expect. I thought he was gonna release it on his like own website on like UNKWN Sounds. But I was like, Drum Broker? Like, are you kidding me? Like,
That is
the roster.
a pinnacle achievement.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was like a crazy milestone for me because like, all the artists, producers that I listened to, grew up with, even not knowing back then and learning about now, I was like, what, he did that and he's on Drum Broker? Like,
It's wild.
I'm like my name is like under there. It's just like such an honor. So like, I'm a big Alchemist fan, and that was like a big I was just big blessing for me to know and achieve. So seeing him there, and then Jake One, I think, has a couple on there, and then obviously Beat Butcher, all those guys. Yeah.
I just love the story though, because that, for somebody, an outsider like me, I would think, oh, this person probably messaged unknown, then they talked a little bit, and then he sent him samples and this. And then I love how organic it all happened. You following your joy. Again, that's the thing I'm always trying to hammer home with people is just follow what makes you happy in those moments, because you were watching Illmind, it inspired you to send the sample. Then somebody else from across the world who you didn't even expect to hear it heard it, and now you have 2 packs on the Drum Broker in addition to your own music library,
right,
coming out of a time where you weren't even sure what you were gonna do.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't have expected, like, out of 2020, I was like, you're gonna have a music library, you're gonna have 2 packs, and like that in myself was like it's crazy to think about. Honestly, I didn't really think about that until you asked that question right now. So like it's I'm humbled by it is all I could say, and amazing. But I do want to I agree with you in terms of like the joy, and that's the thing that I do believe 100% is the main thing you should hold on to. I think I would just say, like, obviously you don't want to be, cause just judge from my own experience when I was in a band. I think it was funny. It was me and Ryan. We were definitely the guys that were like, just be joyous about it, just figure it out. We'll just create music, man. It's gonna be awesome. And then our guitarist and our drummer, guitarist, his name's Joseph Diaz, and our drummer Matt Pana, they had more like level-headedness about like the business of it, and then reaching out, paperwork, all that stuff. I think it was great being part of holding on to like the mantra of like following the joy of it, but it's also so important to make sure that you understand like the business side of it as well. It's just something you'd want to do for yourself to make sure that you're set up for success in that way, and then it'll only empower you when you have everything right from a business point of view, so that when you do get those revenue streams, everything looks good with the paperwork and all the money comes in. It's just something that definitely shouldn't be ignored. Joy is great. It's the number one thing. But I did want to mention that because I think I was, cruising for too long that I would have hoped that I wish, just a lesson to learn from.
I love that. No, please.
Yeah. When I was in the band there. So, but obviously great for the experience. And then Alchemist recently released an interview, which that helped me accept that experience, is that he said that he wasn't worried about the publishing, all that stuff, and he doesn't regret where he is now, because if he mentioned that if he had known about publishing and all the business side of things, and this sample maker wants this percentage of this, he probably wouldn't have made all of the classics and hits, that he did back then. So I took that really resonated with me, and I agree, like, if my mindset was different then, we probably wouldn't have created the same music,
Agreed.
we did back then. So, and it's a different time now, but, so if you're on the same boat, or if anyone is, don't be too hard on yourself, just pick up and, be better. Yeah.
Just keep moving.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I look at it like, your balance of creation and like loving to create art mixed with your dedication to like work and achieve things, there's no coincidence that you learned the music management and all the business and then e-commerce and all that, and then it now ties back into what you do every day.
Yeah, it's weird how it all like culminated, and I'm grateful that it was able to kind of have that relationship with each other, like, that kind of like knowledge, it was able to connect in that way. So it's weird. It's weird how it all worked out.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
What is your your daily routine like, you would say? Like, what are your hours, from when you usually like wake up? And it doesn't have to be the same every day, obviously, but when do you generally like wake up till when you fall asleep?
I generally wake up probably like at 7 or 7:30 or like 8 because Sonny, my puppy, he just wakes up like very early to go to the bathroom. So he gets me up a little early, and then I kind of like knock out around. I I I tend to sleep pretty late, like around 12, just because like work or I think just in general, I don't really sleep early. I'd like to. Sometimes if I'm like really tired, I'll knock out early. But yeah, it's weird. Early morning and then late sleeping, which I don't recommend. But yeah, that's just kind of been it. It's just to keep it all the way 100 with everybody.
What's the
Yeah.
like how soon from when you wake up till you usually start creating?
Yeah, so because, music isn't, full time for me, I put, my full time work first, and then obviously if there's a hour lunch break, I might put like a melodic idea, maybe from like 12 to 1, and then maybe finish it after 6. Usually in the evenings I'm able to create a bit more.
Okay.
Yeah, so that might explain why I sleep too late. I get too into what I'm
What you're
creating.
doing?
Yeah, yeah, and the reason why I want to be like fully transparent is like I wish there was a process and like a clean cut answer of like I do this in hours, but it's as chaotic as it sounds. I kind of just live my life and like grasp moments of opportunity throughout the day to create it.
You
And
follow your inspiration and your
yeah,
opportunity.
exactly. And the time, because as you get older, you don't have as much time. And I think if you're blessed with being able to produce as your career and do that as your full time, go all the way and do it. But
Agreed.
like, yeah, if you're indie music creator, you just got to figure out what works for you, and be appreciative of the time that you have, and do what you can with the most of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I wanted to ask you because,
Mm.
the more guests I'm going to have on, I'm going to be asking different people, what are your hours and when does this happen? And it's going to be interesting once we have the catalog accrued to see the different sample makers, different hours and different processes, and
Yeah.
that's what I'm curious about. I want to know all the finer details that you don't see.
Yeah, and you kind of get a hint of it. Sometimes when I do randomly do stream on Twitch, and I always apologize to like the few folks that are in the call, but they're always so cool about it. Usually they're like us other producers just hanging out, but Sonny, he'll ring the bell. He's trained to ring the bell when he wants to go out. So he'll ring it during the stream, and I was like, sorry, I gotta go. Sometimes he'll ring it, within like 10 minutes. Like, bro, I just took you out.
Yep.
And I'll just go out, and most people would think, oh, the stream is so frustrating to watch, and I could understand that, but I also want to embrace that that's my life, that's my lifestyle.
That's real.
Like, yeah, that's what I have to do. But my like I mentioned earlier, the joy is figuring out a way to finish it no matter what. Going with the motions, riding the waves, coming back, and then at the end of the day, the stream or whatever, that sample is gonna be done. Even if it's not. There are times when someone submits a sample and I'm like, all right, I'll finish this offline and I'll send it to them, and
Yeah.
it's a thing, and it's happened with the latest pack. I've made a few samples right on stream for that latest pack, just because I hear folks are interested in the process there. So like, I've done it there, and I think that's just what I want to kind of like, I guess, get across. It's like for my personal process, it's like whatever comes, you just kind of ride the wave and do what you can.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Usually for you, generally, when from the moment like inspiration strikes, or you find kind of like that first exciting idea, how long generally from when that first idea happens till you have like a finished sample?
Let's see. So I think on average, I've noticed like if I maybe like an hour, 2 hours, probably definitely never an hour. Probably 2 hours to like at least get comfortable. Like, all right, this is sounding like it's close to being finished.
Yeah.
But and then depending on whatnot, that might stretch across a day or two if I'm really caught up. But again, I try to create to a point where like, okay, this is good enough. Move on to the next one. because I never want to be at a point where like, all right, this isn't good and just sit on it,
No.
because surprisingly, back then I would have probably just held off, but people hear and they're like, yeah, this is good enough, this is
Yep.
definitely enough the inspiration. And then honestly, listening to other producers from like other streams, hearing, what a producer, an industry producer could do with some of like the smallest and simplest like melodic ideas is like very surprising and also encouraging for like someone like myself to be like, okay, like you don't overthink it. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
the whole song I've been making the last 2 days, the reggaeton type song, the sample was an IB sample that was a bonus sample in his pack. It just said bonus. It's 3
Yeah.
stems. It's just a bass guitar, acoustic guitar, and a vocal chop. And I
Yep.
remember listening to it, and I was like, this isn't like a very lush, like dense sample,
Yeah.
but it was just inspiring the artist I was working with. And then
Right.
after we finished the whole song, we were trying to decide if we needed to add other instruments. So I was like, oh, let's try like a synth top line. Let's try like another guitar top line. And after trying all those other things, we just ended up settling on just the original 3 stems, and that was all we needed.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like the fact that you try to add stuff, that's great, but you also have to be honest. Like, am I doing too much? Because I've been,
Yeah.
I've added so many like different vocals like to add into like a sample. I'm like, no, this is too much, so I'll remove it, and then it sounds better, emptier. And that's the thing. Like, I guess there are samples like you don't want to be too lush because you can't forget that you're producing it, so these samples can be collaborated with.
Yes.
So artists could jump on it. So you got to leave room, a bit of room for the other producers and artists as well. So there's something to I always keep in mind. Yeah.
I agree. And
Yeah.
I feel like, for me, when I was getting deep into the theory, you start writing these crazy chord progressions and you're like,
Yep.
oh, these are so exciting. I haven't heard these. But if a vocalist can't sing to it or they can't
Yeah.
write to it, there's
Yeah.
almost no point. Because
Right.
it's exciting and it's great for the nerds like
Mm-hmm.
me. But if the listener is just like, yeah, I don't know what any of these chords are. Like, it just doesn't, it sounds like jazz. Which
Yeah.
you don't, maybe you want, but most of
Yeah.
the time you got to leave room for the vocalist, for the producer. Like, our job isn't doing 100% of the job. Our job is doing about 80 and then
Yeah.
leaving room for others.
Right, unless you got like D'Angelo top lighting in the studio with you or something, and then okay,
40
you'll probably have
tracks
it.
of vocals.
yeah, like okay, you'll probably have it. Now you have a hit, and then he'll probably be able to float on your luscious chords and everything. But for the most part, you want something that people are able to jump on and feel inspired by quickly.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And even D'Angelo, it's like his chords are crazy, but it's more so like how they support his melody that makes them not feel crazy.
It's insane. It's like the perfect balance of like being complex but also tasteful, and then like simple at the same time. I can't even explain it.
It's the perfect like
yeah.
trifecta.
Yeah.
I agree,
Yeah.
bro. Let me see here. I'm looking at what else do we got here? What would you say like the rhythm of your creative process is like? Like, you find or you start with a certain idea, like what's kind of the order of operations for you?
Oh, okay. So like I guess what I do, it depends, but most of the time, because my time is limited, you obviously most of the time you hear the samples have guitars. That's only because I'm able to express myself quickly through a guitar. So I'll pick anything that I'm able to express myself quickly, and so sometimes I'll do that first. If I hear an idea, I'll start with chords and then put like a lead on it in guitar. I might change the lead to another instrument, whatever. Other times, if I'm away from my DAW or whatnot, with a different Spider-Man suit or whatever like that, one of my Batman gadgets or whatever,
Yep.
crossing over a different universe. But anyway, voice memos. That's like another cheat code. So like,
Such a cheat code.
I will always forget my melodies. Like I come to the point, and it always happens. So if I do forget, like, if I have a melody I like, I'll record it on a voice memo and then go back to it, and then that helps start next time I jump into my DAW. So like, oh, so it was going this way. I have a melodic idea. Just follow it. Don't overthink it, and then build from there. It might not sound the way it does in my head at times, but the fact is it helps kind of continue. It offers that like press continue button, you know?
Yes.
Yeah. Continue?
It's the checkpoint.
Yeah, exactly. So that's how it starts. And then from there, I'll just add, a bit of layers of what I know. I'm not, crazy like theory expert. I didn't have like a, traditional like musical like education in that sense. So a lot of what I do is I play by ear. So if like I said, I'll start guitar, maybe I'll add a bass, which I've been learning more and more of, because I feel like a lot of producers usually don't like to when there's like heavy bass in a sample, just because
Yeah,
it
because
kind
they
of
feel like it's
helps.
going to get cut out anyway.
Yeah, cut out, or they have to EQ it out if they don't like it. But I just can't help. I love playing the bass so much. Sometimes I'm just like, I this is for me.
Yeah.
as long as that is in terms of the approach. But all like the soulful samples and stuff like that. If I ever try to make it, I like to add bass, and sometimes it feels like it's needed. If you don't like it, hopefully there's a stems option for you to purchase. So I'll go and jump on the bass there. And then kind of just layer and build from that simple melodic idea, and kind of seeing where it goes. And I always have, and I feel like most sample makers do this, but you always have like, I think AIM called it a bounce check, and you just add drums to it, like add just you kick, like, and you have fun with it for a bit. I was like, okay,
works.
I could see, yeah, it works. This is good. So having that bounce check has been important to me during that process. And then once that checks off, I bounce the whole session to like a Dropbox folder, making sure like you're organized with your files, having, MP3 waves people to like all the purists or whatnot. And then like the stems as well of the sessions. Because I have like this is just like, I guess, paranoia. Someone's going to ask, bro, you got stems for that, for like a crazy opportunity, and I didn't bounce a stem, so I'm always bouncing stems with everything. And it's always like you're saving yourself in the long run, especially if you have a music library too, because when you need to, if you decide to put it up in the market, then you got the stems for that, and that adds value to the product too. So yeah,
I agree. I love, speaking of backtracking a little bit to basses, I love the bass line in Dancing in the Dark.
Oh yeah, that was one of those rare like things, you just hit it like that was a good day for me for sample making. I got the tone right, and to be honest, I'm still like, I try to create the presets of it, and as much as I love to play the bass, like I still can't figure out how to make it cut through when I hear guys like Pino Palladino or like cartoons and stuff like that. I don't know what their magic is, like their ear is crazy, but I'm still in search of like, what are they doing, or like what is it, is it the bass or whatnot. I play around with different compressors, invested in so many different like courses of like Hug, Luciano to find out, but yeah, it's a fun experience, and that was a sample that I was able to lock in and get the bass tone that I wanted for that. So,
well, it's a great sample. Like, I love that
appreciate
sample.
It.
I'm somebody who, I make it a point to study my guests' work and their catalog. Like, I'm not having you on here just because I saw your name. I'm having you on here because I'm genuinely a fan.
Oh no, I appreciate that, and likewise, like just hearing the Prohibition and when I was like, all right, this guy's crazy.
I appreciate that.
So,
that took a lot of time. Like that took I took Mario's sample course and was doing some stuff with him for a little bit, and then I got caught up in my work life. That was a few years ago, and then I got caught up in work, and then I took Al's sample class because I just got in contact with Al through Mario.
Nice.
And then I pretty much took his class, and that got me set up, and it let me finish my first pack. And a lot of the time, like, where I'm working, I was working on samples, but also I'm a mixing engineer and a producer. So all the while I've been like working on my packs, I'm also like doing pretty much a song or two a week with artists and like releasing them, and then filming music videos and wearing multiple hats. Like we were talking about, wearing different super suits.
Yeah. It's definitely like empowering though. Like, people like, for some reason, I feel like back then, like people just shied away from it, or like it's just like, no, I need somebody for that. And it's like, yo, like you'd be surprised, how far you could go if you just try to pick up the camera and do yourself. And that's something I need to do myself to build that face card. But like, it's a lot, like it's fun to just dive in and try it yourself first, so that when you do maybe come across somebody who does it for a living or whatnot, you're able to communicate in their language, and in terms of like what they work with, and also like you have a better way to communicate your vision for whatever you're working on with that person. So it's important.
I agree.
Yeah.
What would you say is like, how did you know when you were ready to release your first pack? Did you even know you were ready, or do you feel like Unknown kind of told you were ready?
Yeah, it's funny because it kind of happened at the same time. But honestly, I felt like, being taking that break from like music, being able to, I think what helped encourage me was seeing other streamers vibe with like the samples that I would create, and liking it and actually collaborating. And I was like, that was just humbling to me. And I felt like, hey, maybe if people like the way they produce, and they appreciate my samples, maybe this could help someone else create. And I think just the love of that alone, and thinking that I'm able to like be in someone else's hard drive and inspire them to create something, made me feel like ready, like to just release it. Like, people are, if they don't like it, they don't like it. If they like it, they like it. Like, and that's what it was. It was just the idea of being able to, I know it's music, but like to help somebody create, And
Agreed.
Yeah, that's
You're like a conduit for their art.
yeah, and that's all I mean, if you're focusing on sample making, like that's the joy of it, being able to see that somebody could expand on your idea and create that finished product.
I agree. Where did you come up with the name for yourself as an artist, and also your brand?
So Napes came from like a family name, like a really close friend, just pretty much considered family. His name's Noel. He was actually in my EP.
I saw the features.
Yeah. He I knew him since like the first grade. So his family's Filipino. And growing up, I would always go by his house, and they would just call me, "Hey, Napes, how's it going?" And like, that kind of just became a thing. And it always gave me a reminder of like my childhood, the feeling of being a kid, I guess, in that sense, and like that feeling. And so I just decided to go with that moniker for the artist name.
I love that.
Yeah, and for the brand, I guess like for Dat Honey, funny enough, my pit bull beforehand, my wife and I, we love pit bulls. So every time we see a pit bull, like for some reason we just call them honeys. Like that's a honey. That's a good honey. That's a good honey right there. Yeah. That's a bit like so. My pit bull Samantha, she was red nose. She passed away on July this year. But we called her Honey all the time. Like, oh, what a sweet honey. And I had asked my wife like for some ideas, because she's in the marketing world, and I was like, what's a good idea for like a music library? And then she's like, maybe Dat Honey, looking at Samantha's face. And then I was like, oh yeah, that's funny. And we just obviously leaned into more of the literal definition with like the bees and stuff, but it rooted from our nicknames for pit bulls, which is
I love that.
Honeys. Yeah.
I have a pit bull too.
My
dog's a pit bull.
Right. Yeah, I remember. He's brown, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's his name again?
Her name's Maggie.
Her name Maggie. Yeah, so cute. They're amazing, man. Like, I think I'll probably be just. I talked to my wife about this. We're probably just gonna have pit bulls like for the rest of our lives. It's just
I agree.
amazing,
Once you have them, you're kind of like, I don't want another dog, dude.
Yeah. They just have this like crazy facial expression that just seems so much more like. I don't know, like their eyebrows, like it's in their eyebrows. I don't know, they're so goofy, and
they got
so
that short
sweet.
little forehead.
Yeah, and they have like this, bad rap for like no reason. But yeah, love them.
Yeah, no, I mean I love that. I mean, it affected you so much that your brand is named after it. I love that.
Yeah. But great questions. I'm glad you asked that one.
Yeah, man. Like I just, again, at the end of the day, everything I do for my YouTube channel for this podcast is because I'm trying to provide people with the stuff I wish I had.
Yeah, that's great, man, and that's like that's really from like the same, feeling that we get as sample makers or producers as well. You just want to be able to provide and give that channel, and like you mentioned, like a conduit for others.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I look at it like, for me, it's so clear to me that like the sample makers, the ones that are coming up now, like you, like me, like, Elkin, Kabali, like all those guys, like they are the future. We're the future of music. I mean,
Yeah,
Zen
it's a little-
Tachi, that kid is 15, he's on Donda. Like, it's
Yeah.
crazy, These
Yeah,
are gonna be the
it's-
people shaping music tomorrow.
Right. Yeah. It's crazy to think about, crazy to see, and it's a really interesting time, like to be able to be in this position, and I feel like at least it probably always existed, but it definitely it started to become like highlighted during the pandemic, where you're seeing all these producers come out and like work, like their work ethic and these podcasts and different like ventures that they're doing. So it's crazy.
I love that everybody. I'm starting to see more sample breakdowns. Like
Yeah.
that to me is one of the coolest things. Like Motif Alumni just did his sample breakdown the other day.
Yeah, he's insane. Yeah.
It was funny too, because I remember, it must have been 6 months ago. I don't know, a few months ago, he posted this thing on his Instagram, and it was basically him. He had his phone or something. He's recording his laptop, and then the caption was like, "This video will self-destruct in 1 day." So he was basically like posting his process of him making a sample, and then he was deleted it the next day.
Yeah,
and so I
yeah.
fucking screen recorded that. I was like, I need this. I need this info, bro.
Yeah, exactly. There are times, I will like look at Al Hug's like story sometimes, or anyone in their DAW. Like I'll screenshot like, okay, what's your presets?
Yep.
Zoom in, like what are you using?
Of course,
and all that
bro.
stuff.
Because we
But,
all want to know.
yeah.
We're all just trying to be better. We're not trying to
Yeah,
steal. We're just trying to
exactly.
know.
Yeah. And it's honestly, I feel like it's near impossible to steal. Like you could try to sound like that person, and that's great if you're able to like achieve as close to sound as possible. But I always find like people are just gonna do different things with presets. You're gonna play a different guitar line than I'm gonna play, and
Always.
and we're gonna mix it differently. So like there's so many variables like in it. So for me, it's not even like stealing. It's like learning.
Yeah,
At the end of
I
the day,
agree.
Yeah.
Do you ever find yourself like when you're creating a sample? Like I know for me, I'll make a sample, and if I make a really interesting effect chain or something that's like new to me, do you ever find yourself saving the effects as like
Always.
a preset?
Always, yeah. Every time, like even when it's soft digital, whatever. Like if I like the way something sounds, I'm gonna figure out a way to save that as a channel strip setting, so that like it's all about building kind of like your utility belt,
Agreed.
like oh, I have this sound and whatnot. So definitely a cheat code and something that's in like my workflow.
How have you been staying inspired creatively and musically? Like, and that could be a few different things. That could be, going for walks. That could be listening to other music. Like,
Yeah. Sometimes it could be listening to my favorite like music. That's always the go-to. Another thing is a walk with like my dog. And oddly enough, taking a break and learning something else like outside of music has helped, just to like seeing how I could apply. Like I've been just trying to learn more about marketing, or like any of these other like platforms, and Shopify, and different apps, what they could do. It's like a refresher. So I guess in a way, listening to favorite music, taking a breaks, learning something else, kind of helps keep me inspired, so that I'm not solely just in the zone
in
all
a
the time.
box the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. It's good to live life and appreciate everything around you. Being present, I think, is inspiring in itself.
What would you say? Is there anything that is like a big passion to you outside of music?
Outside of music, I guess Honestly, music is probably like my biggest passion within life right now. But like outside of music, right now, I'm just passionate about learning different things. So I'm interested in like web development, stuff I wouldn't say go as far as to say like I'm passionate about learning it, but we'll see how far that goes,
Yeah, you got
if
to
I
see where
actually
the
really like,
inspiration
yeah,
actually takes you.
exactly. Yeah, like what it's gonna become. But I'm been very passionate about that as a recent. And spending I think just spending time with family and just being present, living life is very important to me. So yeah,
I
that's
agree.
kind of where I am. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, like I love music and I grew up around cars though. My dad was in the car parts business. He worked for Rolls-Royce, Bentley,
Oh,
Ferrari, all those
nice.
different places. Yeah, he's a pretty cool guy. And so for me, now that I'm older, I really love like drift cars and car culture. I go to Cars and Coffee all the time, which is like a thing on Saturdays where everybody meets up and there's, all these crazy drift cars, there's muscle cars, there's exotic cars and just I love it's similar to music in the sense of it doesn't really matter how old you are. If you're into cars or if you're a musician, it doesn't matter how old you are. You guys can speak the language.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
And so
crazy.
that
Yeah.
helps me find a balance and come back to my music more creatively. And the people I've met, I would say this. I encourage everybody to find something outside of like your house, outside of music, where you can go meet people
100%.
because
Yeah.
you'll meet so many people with the wildest opportunities that you wouldn't expect that ends up helping your music go
Yeah.
farther.
Right. Or another aspect in your life that, could help build that foundation for music, like it's just uh l- just being genuine and trying to help other people. I think it's just the way to go. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
authenticity is key. And I would just always tell people like don't feel like you have to dedicate 100% of your time to music. Like
Right.
there's a like life has a balance. You need to find other stuff.
Right, right. Yeah, and I can only imagine like I don't, I'm not in the industry in that sense where like it's my full-time job, but like I'm sure like these amazing producers, they just have that balance where like they focus upon it. I feel like if anyone like I could possibly think of might have that schedule is like S1. He's really about being just focus on what you spend your time on. I feel like he probably is like so productive within the few hours that he has, make crunching out like beats. He's just very purposeful with what he does. And same with Ill and all of the industry producers. But like that's something that I learned that I think these these guys that have been doing it for a long time know what to focus on and then spend that time outside of music as well.
I agree.
Yeah, yeah.
And if we can learn it and like take something away for ourselves, like I'm definitely going to apply it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly.
I love that. Let me see what else we got here. Um, what are you looking for when you're discovering like new sample makers, whether that's to host on Dat Honey or just, you find something new? Like, is there something that jumps out to you that you always love?
Yeah, well, I get just genuine, like, if I like the sound, if I think that's usually like the easiest part. Like, and I'm sure like if like a sound, I can imagine other people liking it. That's one. The second part is, I guess, it's important to me and it's just like creating a genuine relationship with that person if I can.
Agreed.
So learning about the person and because I wouldn't want to host or collaborate with anybody if I don't get along or different, we just don't vibe in that sense. So I'd like to have that relationship. It's very important to me, and that's kind of a reason why like I don't make beats as much. But if I were to make beats, I kind of no disrespect for people who sell beats online and stuff like that, but I I cherish and would want a relationship with the artist so much that I want to hold off on my beats that so that I could talk to that person and guide them through and be be in the room in that sense. So that's kind of what I look for. So if I like the sound, if we have a genuine relationship, and yeah, I think those are the main two, and that will
Yeah.
determine if we could make something work out for the library.
I love that. Yeah, for me, like I'm somebody who I've produced a long time. I make a lot of music, but I've made whole songs and whole projects with artists, but I've never sold a beat. I don't do that. Like I just I meet the person, we create every song organically from like start to finish, and people ask me, "Where do you sell your beats?" or "Where can I buy your beats?" and I'm like,
I don't
I,
know.
I don't do that, dude. Like, I don't do that.
Yeah,
It's
right.
just not who I am.
Exactly. So I think me and you, like, we share like the same preference in that, like, we enjoy that process of like being in the studio and creating so much that, like, you know, I feel like I'd be robbing myself by just here's a beat. Like if I were to sell that, man, I wish I could have been in the room with you while you were recording to that beat. Like,
Agreed.
that's what I like about that. But yeah.
Yeah, like for me with artists, I mean, everybody's different. And I look at like whatever inspires you to create your song, like do that. And if it's your means to an end, like that's your
Yeah.
journey and that's your choice. But
Yeah.
for me, I like the idea of writing music and songs now, like holistically. Like one major process that I do with a lot of the artists that I work with that I don't know if everybody does is the artists I work with will write to just the sample. No 808s, no drums, no nothing. They'll have the sample and they'll be writing their melodies and lyrics, and we'll record like a reference. And then we build everything around that.
Nice.
And then they'll come back and record finals once we have everything put together. But I like the holistic approach of not giving them a completed beat and then just kind of like find your space. That
Yeah,
can be
yeah.
hard.
No, yeah, yeah. I think obviously depending like on your time, and everyone has a different process. But yeah, like just the idea and workflow of being able to start with that artist and then bring it to completion. It's really like it's therapeutic in a sense to be on that journey with the person that you're working with, to make
I
that
agree.
that record.
It's different too, I feel like, when you work side by side with an artist. And for me at least, I know I'll hear the finished songs and you almost know what every line is about, who they're talking about. Like, the deeper content of the story. And
Yeah, yeah.
I love that because it's, I can't tell you how many times I've heard a Drake song or a certain song where they talk about a name, they name drop somebody, and I don't know who they're talking about, but
Yeah.
everybody close to them knows the exact person they're talking about.
Right, right, right. Yeah, yeah. That builds, like yeah, it adds story and context to it.
You're world
Yeah.
building at that point.
Right, right, exactly. Like World of Warcraft or something, like
Yep.
a free, but it's a private world. But yeah, yeah. No, I think my experience with when we created that studio album back when, geez, I think it was 2011. With Jesse Barrera, like that's when like that probably left such an impression on me where like, you don't create these things like not that you don't create these things to sound like people do that, but I just loved the whole process of it, like of being able to create and be in this space, to be in it together and see it through together, and that's kind of I was left with, and I always liked and would want with the artist or co-producer or whatever.
Yeah, just organic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's funny, it's funny because like now I think about it, like I only feel about that because with beats, oddly enough, but like samples, I mean, you could technically say the same thing about samples, but I don't know, it's different. I think something about an artist, writing their, like you said, like writing their feelings down, having the story about it that you want to not necessarily be nosy, but you want to be a part of, help produce.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And I look at it like sometimes people don't always make songs or music with an intention. And I feel like having an intention goes a long way. For like I keep referencing this reggaeton song I was working on. That song, when the artist sent it to me, he's like, "Hey, I have this song I want to work on," and I was like, "Yeah, send me a demo." He sent me the demo. It was just the sample, and it was just their vocal over the sample, no drums, nothing. And I was listening to it, and I was like, wasn't particularly inspired to work on it. So I asked him, I was like, "What feeling are you trying to capture? Like, what are we trying to accomplish and communicate? What is the goal of this song?" And he told me, he's like, "Well, I'm just trying to give you this feeling of when you're out with a girl and you're dancing and you're just doing everything right and you just feel like you're the man and you know that she just wants to sleep with you because she knows like you're doing everything right. You're just on point." And when he told me that, I was like, okay, now I know the feeling I'm trying to communicate. And that knowledge and that feeling, I went back to the sample when I pulled it up in the DAW, and I was like, okay, first off, if we're trying to make people dance and move, this needs to speed up. This needs to like move more. And so that kind of intention informed my decision, which ended up making the song
Where
one
it's
of the
at now.
best songs I made. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. It's crazy, like how information like could just like help jumpstart that,
Yeah.
whole process. Like, and that's what I feel like. That's what it's like to be a producer. Like you wanna. It's not just about making beats and everything. It's having that conversation to help the individual or those around you express themselves. So like that's great that you were able to hone in and ask that.
Yeah. So that's what I want people to start approaching music more like, is like, don't get so caught up in, I got to sell all these samples. I got to get these samples to as many people so I can get as many placements as I can. And like, I got to sell all the beats. And it's like, that's nice. Like, that's great. And that's great if that's your motivation. But music at the end of the day is to give people a feeling and to move them. Or I would say this, it's just meant to tap into an emotion. If you're mad, you listen to a certain kind of music. If you're sad, you listen to a certain kind of music.
Yeah.
And people need to like hold into that emotion, and that's why you're creating.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think, I agree, and we're definitely on the same page there in terms of helping, others like express themselves and exploring those like genuine relationships and all this.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to move on to, I have like 2 ending sections I do. One is
Okay,
going to be for the nerds. This is the section where for people like, like you and me who just want to know kind of the nerdier stuff of the sample makers. So
Yeah.
I like putting this at the end because it lets me get the actual conversation done, and then we can learn about all the other crap later.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I will say, I'll preface that, I don't know too much about, like, I'm a nerd in terms of like pop culture, but in terms of music, not so much, but I'll do my best to help.
Don't worry, they're easy. This is going to be totally easy.
Okay. Yeah.
So, what are some of your most regularly used plugins?
Yeah, sure. Like RC20, the cymatics. Pluto is a great go-to for like some different textures and vibes. Origin is good. It's interesting. Like Origin and RC20 are like, they're very similar, but also different to me. Like sometimes I'll play around with those two and see which one. Or the crazy thing about Origin is it's free, I believe. It should be.
That's amazing.
Free. Yeah, yes. That's also built like cymatics. Another go-to, Simplon, which Aimka put me on. It's from Pro Q, or not a Pro Q.
Fab
That's
Filter?
the Fat from Fab Filter, yeah. And then obviously the Pro Q, was it the EQ?
Pro Q3?
Yeah. That's definitely like almost on everything. If I need to get a specific sound, but yeah, nothing beats that for me in terms of like a EQ. And then let's see, just trying to think what else.
Is there like a plugin that stands out to you that you're like, I'm so glad I found this, or this has been like changing my game recently?
I guess not necessarily plugins, but I've been feeling that maybe for like presets. Like presets, like this helps like obviously the guys at Loophole, all of Al Hug's like the
Yeah.
Mellotron
It's
packs,
Mellotron
like, oh yeah,
expansions.
expansions, like those are like definitely like, oh, I'm so glad I have this. But I feel like a lot of people have that, but it's just such a great way to like get inspired by. So yeah, I think it's a mixture of like those plugins and then the different presets.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love that. See? Easy. For the nerds, easy.
Yeah, yeah.
What are some of your most regularly used instruments or pieces of gear that you use?
Okay, so this is probably gonna be disappointing to some, and if it gives a negative view about the quality, I'm sorry, but this is what I got. I have a $200 off-brand guitar, called a Groat.
A groat.
Yeah, but I just wanted just because it had the hollow body design. But what helped me justify that was that when I took my sample class with Luciano, he was saying, in the past there were these guitars, they were just playing on these off-branded guitars, and
Yeah,
it's
like
what made the
Silvertone
records.
and all those.
Yeah, it was just making what the record was today. I was like, okay, so it's okay. Yeah,
It is.
obviously, yeah, I wouldn't have cared either, but it just helped me like just go with what you have essentially. So that's one. I use a Hofner bass, recommended by Al Hug, and then I have a 5-string Music Man bass that my wife so generously gifted to me for one of my birthdays.
Good woman.
And yeah, and then any other instruments? I think those are kind of like the main three, and then obviously the MIDI keyboard, but nothing like fancy. But those are like the three, I guess. Oh, and I have a classical guitar, and I'm sorry I can't remember the name, but it was like one of those classical guitars from like you could get like at a Guitar Center or whatnot. I just needed a nylon string.
Yep. I went to
yeah.
Guitar Center. I bought like a $200 Ibanez nylon string that had the
Yeah.
cutaway just so I
Yeah,
could
yeah.
make sure I hit the high notes. And
Nice.
that's what I use on all mine.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Like you really could get away with a lot because like, the plugins are pretty much the auto tune to vocals. Like you could just
Yep.
you do whatever you want to the sound and make it to whatever you like.
I agree.
Yeah.
What are some of the most underrated or slept on plugins, do you think?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe a lot of people use that one. Trying to think. Let me just take a
Yeah,
look
you're good.
here.
Like I know for me, one of the ones that I love is the Melda production bundle because the Melda
yeah.
bundle is free, but there's like this vibrato in there that sometimes I'll use that instead of the pitch on RC20 because the vibrato in that free plugin is just
That's
amazing.
amazing. Yeah, I mean, Ryan put me on this one. It's the Nicky Romero Kickstart. It's great to just
Ooh,
get
yeah.
yeah, that's a lot of just to get a quick like kind of rhythm in the sample could help. Let's see, everyone uses like the Valhalla, and I feel like it's obviously popular due to like the ad spend of this plugin, but I love it. I don't care what anyone says. Is the drip plugin.
Yep.
I feel like people are always they might have like it's just like kooky like plugin everyone uses it, but I love the sound. Like I'll go to different presets and they added like a new bank to it that I love, and it just helps me get a different texture that I tend to like most of the time, or at least steer me into a direction where I need to go. So people know about drip, but I'm not sure if people have been like using it as much, but who knows?
No, it's probably it's probably slept on.
But yeah, because people think that everyone uses it, but no, not a lot of people use it. Is what I'm thinking, but who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's perfect.
Yeah.
What is some secret sauce that you wish you had known earlier on when you started making music or started making samples that you know now?
I think we probably covered it on the conversation, but like just the secret sauce is, I think, at the end of the day, your mindset and just how you approach creating and adding repetition to it. You know, do as much as you can when you can. Don't force it, and most importantly, you know, have fun with it. And
Agreed.
I know it sounds like very like cliche, but I think again, you just need to go through the motions of life until you reach a mindset where you just love it enough that you don't care. You just want to create for the love of creating with it. Like you just want to know that, that it's something that you do, even if, you know, if it was like, it was for free. And most cases, technically you could do it for free, but like you just want to do it anyway, I guess is what I'm saying. And that's
Even
the
if you
mindset.
never made a dollar.
Yeah, even if I never made a dollar, I'm not doing this interview. I'm not doing it. It's just fun. Like you just want to do it. Like, you know, yeah.
That's perfect. No,
Yeah.
I agree. I couldn't agree more.
Yep.
All right, we're gonna move on to my final five, and after this, we'll wrap it up.
All right.
All right, and for the final five, you can answer these like one sentence, one word. They don't have to be really, really long if you don't want to.
Okay.
What is the worst advice you've ever received?
The worst advice I've ever received. I feel like I'm stealing this from Russ's. He said this, and I'm stealing his answer, but it's just like be realistic, you know, because like then it puts you into that perspective to just overthink stuff instead of just trying it. You know,
And taking a
just,
risk.
yeah, just trying it. And obviously, when everyone takes a risk, it's like for some reason everyone goes to the point of, oh my god, like that means I put all my money on the line. It's like, no, man, don't be stupid.
No.
just do it for fun of it. Do what makes you feel comfortable. No one's forcing you to do anything the way you don't want it. Just try it. That's it.
Take a calculated risk.
Yeah, take a calculated risk. Yeah, then it makes sense. Don't put your house on line. Don't put all your chips in. Just
Nah.
have fun. Yeah. So.
That's the worst advice you've ever
Yeah,
received.
I would say, yeah.
What is the best advice you've ever received?
I think this is the best advice, but I just took a while to like execute is, and it comes from like Illmind and Al Hug is just try it.
Just
And
try it.
you'd be so surprised like how long it could take someone to just try something, you know.
It's true.
Yeah, and even if it's like in sessions, like I don't know what it'll sound like, but just putting into practice of trying different things and see if it works. And even with Jesse, I remember when we were in the studio, he was like, let's try it. That
Yep.
was like a thing that you always hear. And I think it remains true to this day. It's like the best advice you give yourself is you never know where it'll take you.
I heard a good quote from John Mayer, and he said, it's always cooler to say that didn't work than that won't work.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
What
love
is what is something you wish more people did in their music?
I think I tweeted about this actually. Well, and maybe it could be branched out to like other creators and whatnot. But I see like now I'm seeing everyone on Twitch stream like all these producers collaborate, you know, and maybe I've been sleeping on certain like streamers and whatnot. But I wish like, you know, artists would be more open. Like, yo, somebody send me beats and I'm gonna make the song right now and like just rap on it, because like it seems like you're making, you know, there's this huge middleman of like throwing the beats out into the world and hoping that an artist lands on it, when I feel like they're nowadays if an artist could just jump on, if they know their way around you know, the DAW and whatnot, they could just work with a very talented producer on stream and make the song right there. So like just kind
I
of
agree.
doing the process right there. So that's what I would like to see more often in terms of like the completion of a song. But yeah, I'm not sure if that necessarily answers the question, because it's
does.
very like, you know, it's to specific you know, group, but yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Where do you see music going in the next 5 years?
Oh, I would probably just say more independent and more leverage for those independent artists, because it's like, I think I'm learning that it's like, and I'm still learning this now, just it's a different world now, and it's definitely more opportunity for creators. It's not even music, honestly. Like anybody that likes to do anything, like you could figure it out on online and do your research.
YouTube University.
Yeah, YouTube, exactly, YouTube University. And yeah, I think that's where everything is going, it seems like. And a bit, I even after post pandemic, I think everything's also leaning more towards kind of like a remote lifestyle, if for those that could live that way. But I think that there's a shift there too. It's been helping, I think, myself mentally too, and I think it's great for everyone to be able to spend more time with like their loved ones instead of in office or somewhere else if they don't need to be
I
there
agree.
or whatnot. Yeah, yeah.
And all right, final question. What would you say is the best way for a sample maker to improve their samples?
Communicate, engage with the sample makers you like. Always give them flowers while they're here. Comment, because like just commenting like great, like it helps. Just like you never know what the person's going through. It helps like with like to know that okay, people are just a positive feedback. Just that alone helps. So engaging. Number one thing, if you're in position to figure out a way to invest in those people that are inspiring to you, like people like Al Hug, Luciano, Ill Mind, even the streamers like Elite, like all these different avenues to communicate and support financially goes a long way, like to
It's true.
build that, not only your relationship with the person or your knowledge, because just tap in with everybody that that resonates with you, I would say.
I agree. It costs nothing to leave a comment, to like somebody's post, to engage with them a little bit. And those small engagements can build lifelong friendships.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't want to be like, just be genuine about it. Like you don't even have to like ask anything in return. Like, I think that's how our kind of like conversation honestly started. Hey, I liked your sample pack. It was fire.
100%.
That's all, whether it was through a comment or DM, like it was just it's positive feedback. And I think that's something.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah.
Well, thank you for taking some time with your day to talk to me and share all this information and being my first guest. Like, I'm really honored, man. Thank you.
No, I'm honored that I'm honored to be here, and I'm excited to hear more from like the podcast, and I really appreciate you reaching out. I'm happy to do it again in the future, and we definitely need to tap in on a collab pack for sure.
I agree, man. Well, thank you so much. We'll
yeah.
wrap it up here, and I'll go from here.
All right.